Good evening. You're watching Point Blank here at KTN News, and we are shooting from the Nairobi Serena. If you were to believe Isaac Mwaura, Kenya is in ICU, economic ICU. Let's come now to the figures that we wanted to cover in this segment. Where exactly are we in terms of, for example, you were talking about per capita income.
Yes, please.
What does every Kenyan owe in debt? What are the comparable figures as we are today?
Now, let me just show you. By the time we were lifting the debt ceiling cap, there are two ways of assessing the debt, Tony. First, you can do what we call debt to GDP ratio. It means the total amount of debt versus your GDP, gross domestic product. That's the wealth of the country in total. Estimated at 9.8 trillion, up from 7 or so trillion, 7.8 trillion in a year 2014. We were doing at around 60%. Now, one may ask themselves, why are you speaking now, Isaac Mwaura? It's because I've been speaking since 2013 when I was in the National Assembly. And at some point I was told, oh, you, Isaac, you're just waxing eloquence. Now, the former Cabinet Secretary, Henry Rotich, and Dr. Duge, why were they thrown out of the National Treasury? It's because of the same issue. If you look at the charge sheet of Duge, it's about the unsustainable debt. They used to come before the committee. I was a ranking member of the budget committee.
I would need to slightly intervene. We don't want to discuss an ongoing case. And I can't, because
No, I want to tell you that. I want to tell you. No, it's important I say that. Because if there was no change of guard at the National Treasury...
I'm only talking to a reference to the charge sheet.
No, it's about the national debt as a charge sheet. No, as a charge sheet. You see, have you ever had somebody, Tony, who is charged because of unsustainable debt in the country? That's why I'm telling you that this is symptomatic. It's systemic, issues, pandemic that we are having in the country. But let me slow
so
down.
that we can continue, let me just put a disclaimer.
Yeah.
KTN News has no view on the substance of the charge sheet.
No problem.
But go
Yeah, that is my...
Yes.
So when you look at it clearly, then you see a situation where we have a country that claims the National Treasury over-projects the amount of money to be collected every year. Now, if you look at debt to GDP ratio, and the way debt is analyzed, there are two ways. One, you have the nominal debt, basically a blank figure. Yeah, you say like 5 trillion or 10 trillion, whatever. But then you say the other one is a percentage of your total wealth. And the international practice, properly researched, recommended, this is something I've done in my postgraduate studies, is between 28 to 35% is sustainable. That is to mean, in simple language, that the salary you earn, if you earn 1,000 shillings, you should borrow 280 to around 350 shillings from that 1,000 shillings. That is sustainable. But you cannot be earning 1,000 shillings and then you are borrowing 920 shillings. I mean, who lives that kind of life?
Right.
Even civil servants, you're told you cannot take more than 30% of your basic pay.
So, Mheshimiwa, because we have a lot to cover today, I want now to come to recurrent. I really need to get your view on several matters. You were saying that there is the issue of overspending on the development, so on the recurrent, so there is no development. Is it an overuse? Why is there so much money towards recurrent? Is it also another form of corruption?
I think because of the availability of debt externally, and because also of that appetite for big projects. So most of the recurrent expenditure is not very well factored in terms of priorities for Kenyans. Because then it's about the cars that people drive, it's about the offices, the way they're furnished, it's about the teas that people take, it's about, the newspapers, the flowers, all of those
Flying first class.
Yeah, all those exhibitions. For example, why do people fly business from Nairobi to Mombasa? Why? And there was even a discussion we had in the National Assembly that even if you are minister or who, if you are flying less than 4 hours, you should take economy. But when I'm in the economy, I see people flying business, and this is just 45 minutes, wherever. So we need to do what we call fiscal consolidation in a manner that cleans up the budget, because we have what we call the principle of subsidiarity, which means you and I, if we have a unit, you have a unit, I have a unit, then we form a bigger unit. You do your budget, I do mine, and then we do a collective budget. But then people prepare wish lists from that process. And every year, the budget is incremental because people are asking for more. But then when you come to accounting for how much they have used for what, in terms of the concerns of Wanjiko and service delivery, zero.
So if I ask you point blank, what would be your solution? If Isaac Mwaura tomorrow was elected president of Kenya, what would you do? What are the first few things you would do to arrest and, for example, would you say, like Musalia Mudavadi says, freeze the borrowing? Would you start by saying, cut that project? How would you, there's even been the call of saying the Big Four is too ambitious. What would President Isaac Mwaura say?
First and foremost, we must plan long term. The problem we have with our country is that we are planning in a knee-jerk kind of a way. We don't even have a political ideology that guides our development. What is Isaac Mwaura's political ideology? Is the third way, the social market economy that combines the best of the left, which is social democracy, and capitalism, to create something that is sustainable. If you look at China, they actually have adapted something called socialism with capitalist characteristics. We've got to ask ourselves, how are we organized socially as Kenya? What are our economic basis? We go back to the basics and actually strengthen the issue of production. Productivity is an issue. Then you need to do a serious budget audit. There's a lot of wastage in government. That for me is important, and we tried to do that in 2013, but then we were stopped in the tracks because some people saw we were affecting projects that are concerning them. Number three, you just can't go borrowing for projects that you have not properly thought about in terms of what are they bringing return on investment. So what is the need of you going to build a new house if the other old one you cannot even maintain?
So let me put it to you point blank. One of the things that you've not talked to me about is this whole issue of asset recovery. Because when it comes to corruption and it comes to all these kind of problems, let's assume we begin to pursue and there is action towards this. What you call government wastage, never is it brought back. There was a small period in time when the Swiss banks and the rest were trying to get back a bit of what was stolen. To your thinking, how much of this ever wasted money can ever be got back? I'm looking for solutions. I'm asking the viewer looking at you now. If they say tomorrow the new broom sweeps clean and we decide, okay, we're going to tackle this, is it hopeless or can it be done? Can government be aggressive?
Let me ask you, Tony. Do you know how much money is stashed abroad from Kenya? 14.8 trillion shilling. If you go to a place called Conava in Switzerland, Geneva, you see a hotel called Warwick. Who is the owner of that hotel? Mobutu Sese Seko. But it was recovered it was taken over by the Swiss government. We have a lot of money by Kenyans from the Kenyan economy stashed abroad. If it was me, I would find vehicles, special purpose vehicles, of giving those people to bring this money back into the economy so that then they are able to, not to build other people's economies, but ours. For example, in Nairobi, we need actually a tram system. We need a light rail, for example. We need to make sure that we open up our roads because this congestion is stealing a lot of man hours. Look at Kitui, for example.
Yes.
Kitui, the high Grand Falls, have a capacity of producing 700 megawatts, you know, of electricity, clean electricity. Look at the issue, Tony, of using nuclear energy, you know, so that our power costs come low. But then when you have also schemes within the Kenya Power, people trying to come up with ways of ensuring they're inflating people's bills. You have, you know, bills of 30,000, 40,000 from a household as if you have a small factory in the house. And, you know, half the time you're not at home. How will you incentivize people to manufacture? You
know, I'm pushing you on this, my brother, Mwaura, because deterrent. You know, during the fight against corruption, you can either say we are hopeless because the courts are not jailing, or you can take an approach of name and shame. You can also take an approach in asset recovery of punishing those who steal. as a deterrent. As you amplify, and we shall go further into what you are saying to the country, you must also say, where are the solutions?
No, those are the ones that I'm giving, and I'm saying you must put a stop into this. And you know, behavior is copied. If, for example, Isaac Mwaura today steals, and he owns a building here in Nairobi, and that building is taken away, what are you telling the other people who are stealing? That it doesn't matter how much you steal, as long as you are going to be caught, you lose everything. In fact, you lose even what maybe you acquired legitimately. You see, that's number one. But also number two, pragmatism would require that those who have already stolen, and of course you really cannot capture them, you kind of provide a mechanism where this money is invested back. So you stop this, and instead of even going to borrow, through PPPs, you know, public-private partnerships, you are able to fund development projects that are transformational, not just for the sake of stealing again. You know, that's where the problem is. The conceptualization of projects in this country is not done in a manner to help Wanjiku. It is actually done in a manner to steal. If you have the best interest of Wanjiku at heart, Tony, really you make it, because you either have integrity or you have none. There is no gray area about integrity.
And why I was asking this, people like Muthoni Kimani's asset recovery unit, which by law created, is new, upcoming. I would challenge you, where you sit, and you're a vocal senator, how much is given in terms of volume to what she can do, or that recovery agency can do, or are we just giving too much volume to the ones who are perpetrating? Because my question is, dawari iko wapi? Unajua Mwaura nauliza kwa sababu saa ile mlifanya kama Senate uzalendo, muka impeach governor Waititu. Wagavana wengine waliona wakaona hapa hakuna mchezo. Chuma iko motoni. My question is there going to be more aggressive from where you sit at the legislature and where other Kenyans are sitting? And that's what I'm talking about, name and shame. We can't just sit down and wait and say we are hopeless to the courts. We are hopeless to this collapsing system of corruption as an industry. What are the remedies that you would also say that can counter what you're saying?
I agree with you, Tony, that the money is so allocated to the agencies that we expect to fight corruption is not adequate. I am actually the secretary of the African Parliamentarians Network Against Corruption, APNAC, and we just had a meeting with the EACC, and they complained a lot about the attrition of their staff. The best that are trained are taken away by the banks and whatever, and also the allocations are not enough. So it is, and as a vice chairman of Finance and Budget Committee of Senate, it is our intention. And in fact, I think I would implore upon such agencies to come and speak to us. In fact, I was on record as the one who brought the first motion, in the fight against corruption in this current Senate, which occasioned a very serious engagement with the multi-agency team by the Senate. So we are really committed. If that were not be the case, I would not be...
So is Muthoni Kimani is listening to you?
Yes.
You know, this is point blank.
Exactly.
I can't just, you know, you've got a big microphone here today.
Yes, yes.
But they need to know that you're there.
Yes,
they can come
certainly. You have allies and people who are not afraid to speak, because we cannot just, you know, bury our head in the sand like the proverbial ostrich. The things are bad. And if you can help us by demonstrating that these are the assets that we need to recover, but we do not have the wherewithal to do so, we will actually give you money. We would rather divest that money. And let me give you an example. Look at the NHIF. Have you actually known that out of the 38 billion allocated to NHIF, only 7.5 million Kenyans are covered, Tony, but most of this money is going to private hospitals. Do you know what is happening there? You have a hospital, I am the NHIF, I tell you, your bill is 3 million, make it 6 million, then we share the kickback. That is a problem. Instead of NHIF funding government hospitals, which are at 48%, the private ones are about 37%. The rest are actually faith-based hospitals. It is actually another corruption hole. And you know, if you are to put 38 billion into government hospitals, they would be transformed, I can assure you.
So I want to put it to you, point blank.
Yes.
You've said here, because you're going to talk about BBI, you're going to talk about these things, you're saying you're tired because politicians want to do this and the other. And I'm putting to you, you are the senior man in the Senate on finance. And I'm asking point blank, will you commit here to KTN News that you can call Muthoni Kimani? Agency has no support, has no ability to seize assets which are already there because there is not enough laws, not enough money, not enough capacity. So my question is, what is the point of having an agency which is there to do exactly what you're saying? To, first of all, get the asset from the corrupt, for him to explain where it has come from, as opposed to now waiting for the person. Just like you did with impeachment, can the Senate become proactive in the fight against corruption instead of relying on the judiciary?
Tony, you saw how active I was on the impeachment against Waitito, and I've been very consistent about this, and I'm very happy, and this actually vindicated the Senate. It is the same way. Muthoni Kimani should come, we sit and agree on a way forward to strengthen her role, because some of us are very committed to emancipating Kenya from the doldrums of corrupt cartels who actually want to siphon life out of us. That one
Mwaura, I want to move on.
Yes.
Is she coming, or can you summon her? This is
no,
not bad.
Okay, let me explain to you how it happens. Let me explain how it happens. Because, when you want to appear before a committee,
yes,
you write to the committee, and the committee will accept your invitation, yes, and then she will come and present. We just had a conversation with ISPAC,
yes,
international budget programs. We listened to so many people. So I have not seen her appear before a committee. If she has, maybe she needs to. But I have not seen her. I would love her to come so that we can understand her work.
Tembea Kenya, look, yes, at the malls, look at the apartment buildings, yes, look at the helicopters at Wilson.
Certainly, many of them.
If you yourself can see, then yes, what are you can...
No. Tony, let's not miss the point. Do not count me as a lackadaisical individual somewhere seated, whining. No. I actually want us to have a true national conversation. Yes. And it's through this true national conversation that then such agencies can be strengthened to actually effectively do what we have agreed to do in the fight against corruption.
So I'm saying put your money where your mouth is.
Certainly. That
follow that through, and I'll follow you through on this.
You can take it from me, I will follow that through.
Now, yes, how bad is it now at the counties? You were saying it is getting bad.
My brother, let me tell you, how do you expect MCAs who literally don't even have a kitty to oversight a governor with billions, right? How do you expect CECs who are mere appointees of the governor to actually implement that which the appointing authority doesn't have? I am of the view that we need a proper oversight mechanism at the county level. Because the challenge of an MCA when they go back to the village is all of those funerals, matangas, and what have you, and they have no way, there's no recourse. In fact, they're very vulnerable to being bribed. That I must tell you. Because then, how will they sustain those needs? And most of these social welfare needs would be addressed effectively by government if we are able to do proper health, education, and social services, right? But then you have governors who also don't want to be scrutinized because they think that when money is allocated from the center to the periphery, to County X, it is them who are being given that kind of money. So corruption is huge, The tendering process is opaque, you know. People have actually been co-opted. Some of these governors are even co-opting MCAs by making them to be the contractors. And you know, the challenge of our contracting system, Tony, is if you give quacks to do a job, how will they deliver? Because they're only interested in money. Yeah. You get the point?
The agents.
And then all of the counties, how many of them have audit committees? And not just audit committees in terms of having an MCA who was rightly elected through democracy from being a boda to go and audit a governor without the expertise of an auditor. You see?
I mean, the
kind of professional expertise at the counties is very, very, very thin, you know, as to support the MCAs to do the oversight work. So we are dealing with very new institution called devolution, and I want to say this. Devolution is good. It's actually the revolution. Yeah? But then it doesn't have enough capacity to oversight government. But also at the same time, the monies allocated to counties are now starting to dwindle. Last year, we allocated 316.5 billion. It's the same that is so allocated without factoring in the cost of inflation at 6 or 7%. That is to mean if you have 1,000 shillings today, next year, or if you had 1,000 shillings last year, today it's less worth by about 6 shillings. It's the same 1,000, but that is not being factored into the money that is going to counties.
So for example,
so we have two problems.
Yes.
Inadequate resources on one hand,
yes,
but also inadequate oversight.
And that is why I was saying, like, Cameron Dam, for example, was a ghost. It's localized. It is stealing from their own people. They can't see the dam. Yeah. The money has... I mean...
Exactly. And you know... and you know what, Tony? Do you know what is the motivation? How do people address you when you go back to the village? Oh, you are a big man in Nairobi and you're doing well. And you can show with the car you drive. Your children are going to the Ivy League schools, if there are any, those top-notch schools. And you can give some little handouts here, Harambe here, Rwadabi. If then that is the motivation of being seen to be successful, why would somebody not steal? That's a challenge. And so we have to also, over and above the issues of systems and structure, there is also the issue of value system. And that is a conversation we must have also. Because as long as we continue to glorify these people, they are the same ones who also then come and occupy the political space and clog it because they are going to protect themselves.
So is it the proponents of devolution, when you and I were at Bombers,
yes.
used to argue, and I remember Apollo Jonjo was very vocal on this issue, that the moment you localize money, people will police their own money. How come the people who are, when money is localized, they have still not been able to police?
Because of the issue of the civil society development. Because social audits were done so much at the national, there is little expertise at the local level. But there are new groups that are emerging. For example, in Kiambu, where I come from, there was Okoa Kiambu group, for example, Bunge la Mwananchi. Those people have done a lot of good work. They're asking questions, but the moment they ask questions, they're even being threatened to be deregistered. The people's capacity and oversight, mechanism is not properly developed, and that's why many of the governors, many of the counties, factotums are actually taking advantage, because of that lack of oversight. So we also need to build a lot of capacity around civic education, so that people are able to understand when the money comes, are they also participating in the development of the CIDP, the County Integrated Development Plan, the Annual Development Plan, and auditing that, so that by the time we are doing budgets, some of these plans are actually the ones speaking to projects, not because somebody went to a marketplace, there was a local demand, and they just shouted and gave a project there and then. So that then there's haphazard development. So that then also, from the money from the center, and the money is supposed to be collected, that gap creates spending bills because some of these projects are not properly conceptualized. And they are also not according to the long-term felt need of the people.
Mwaura, how much does every Kenyan owe?
Do you know how much we are paying per year now from what we have borrowed? We are now over 600 billion shillings. 600 billion.
So what is my debt?
138 billion. 138 shillings.
38,000?
138,000 shillings. Yes. And it's going to go more because our individual is more than our GDP per capita. Remember, I told you our GDP per capita is $1,200.
Yes.
So it's like you will pay the 1,200
yes.
and remain with a debt of another 18,000 shillings. That is how bad things are.
Well, you're watching Point Blank here at KTN News. Senator Mwaura says we are a gratonious society,
yes.
One which is overborrowed by the culture of stealing, but where corruption has been decentralized to the bottom. And he says, until the people rise up and understand.
This is KTN.